Hi everybody, it is that time of the week again where Laura and I come together to just chat. But today we are also joined by the fabulous Nicky Hoyland from Hula. So, hey Laura.
Hello. Hi everyone. We are so excited to have Nicky with us today.
We are.
And so Kelly and I were thinking about what we wanted to talk about this week, as we always do. And we thought about learning and the importance of learning and development for the HR community. So we thought it would be really important to bring Nicky in, who is the expert in technology around HR learning. And she just launched a new website for Hula, which is coming soon. So welcome, Nicky.
Thank you for having me. I've tuned into these sessions and found loads of value from them. So it's great to get the opportunity to be on with you both. So thanks.
Awesome. No, it's lovely to have you, and hopefully you'll get as much value, if not more, being on this side of the screen. We'll see what happens.
We always learn from each other. We always learn from each other and tend to have these like little aha moments as we talk, which is part of the fun.
We do.
I feel like I need to keep up my note game though with yours, Laura, but I fail.
Laura is on fire with her note taking. I think she puts everyone to shame. It's like she does these Instagram and like LinkedIn posts afterwards with everything she's scribbled on a notebook. And if anything comes out of it for me, I've got like one word on a post-it note.
A post-it note and an iPad. So in true form, I've gone digital.
So funny. I just learned from a friend of mine that she got paid in college to take notes for people who couldn't come to class. I was like, I didn't know that was a job. I would have made a fortune in that job. I love taking notes. So funny. So yeah, if it serves me now, great. I am the note taker of the HR community, and I'm pleased.
You are, and you do it brilliantly, particularly on your branded paper with your branded pens.
Thank you.
Learning. So come on, Laura.
Yeah, in our usual fashion, we don't want to just talk about fluff today around learning because there's a lot of conversations about that. What the three of us have been talking about offline is the resistance we're hearing to training from companies, and we're not sure why, and we want to kind of get to the root of it. And I think all of us are hearing it from different angles. So Nicky is hearing some resistance to adopting new technology that people aren't familiar with. Kelly's hearing it from people resistant to virtual coaching, and they're so used to having it one-on-one in person. I'm hearing it in resistance to just generally training talent acquisition, which is kind of a new concept. Not a lot of people have even invested in it. So we just need to get to the root and talk about why or how or what. I don't know the right verb here, but there's something going on around resistance. So if either of you want to take it first, let's see what we can get to.
Do you want to kick off, Nicky?
Yeah, I think I probably saw, and as we were chatting about just ahead of this call, I think at the start of the pandemic and COVID, there was this I'm going to stop doing everything that I've done, and we'll just wait until things are back to normal, and we'll stay in a constant state of wait rather than perhaps accept that something might not be quite as effective, but equally doing something is far better than doing nothing. Yeah. I think from a technology standpoint, though, at times we saw people panic buy a little bit. So similar to like buying toilet roll pasta, I think there was we'll panic buy, HR technology and just put anything in place and kind of lift and shift everything that we did face to face and say, oh, we're just going to do training online for like a 7-hour slot, which again, probably just those that didn't want to do anything, you saw the hesitance to want to change how you perhaps approach that just lift and shift wasn't the answer. I think there was a period of time where that was okay and acceptable because you had to do what you had to do, right? And it was just get through it. But I think we've been here for long enough now that it's a bit lazy to have not started to go, well, actually, how do we pivot or do things a bit differently or accept some of the changes that's needed?
And in your experience, Nicky, because again, I know this is something that Laura and I talk about a lot, but a lot of this kind of apprehension to thinking of doing things differently, to embracing new ways of doing it was there kind of pre-pandemic anyway, wasn't it? I know there's, unless we can deliver it face to face, or unless it's, unless you can deliver the same thing that was delivered to us 5 years ago, because we really liked that and that really worked for us, there's still been a lot of this kind of apprehension. And I think a point that you just made there that was really, that I think I've definitely seen, I'm sure Laura has as well, this kind of just lifting up a 7-hour training course and thinking, well, let's just deliver it via Zoom or whatever other technologies are available. But like that seemed to be kind of one of the favourable things to do. So even the adapting to the environment that we were in didn't really feel like it was happening, instantly for us. As I said, some of the stuff that we do, we have always delivered virtually. We've always delivered it online and in person. But our full-day workshops that people then wanted to do online, we were chunking up into smaller pieces, because I'm aware as a deliverer, I'm not sitting or standing in front of a screen for 7 hours delivering content. That's no good for me doing the delivery. And I acknowledge that's no good for me as a learner if I'm on the other side of it. So is there anything that either of you have got in kind of like and again, this probably starts off to Laura's point, but what's stopping us adapting? What's creating even that, like we just said, even that example of 7-hour face-to-face, let's just deliver it in front of a camera. What do you think is stopping some of that ability to adapt to do? Because I don't think we're thinking about the learners when we do that.
Yeah. I wrote down something Nicky said, acceptance of change, and it got me really thinking about like stages of grief, right? And none of us are psychologists, but we're all aware of stages of grief, and we're all aware that this trauma, this collective trauma of a pandemic is considered to be something that we're going to need to grieve and work through. The three of us are very good about sharing with each other the struggles and how we're getting through it. We're not denying it, but I'm wondering if, two of the stages of grief are denial and bargaining, right? So denial is just, it doesn't exist. We're seeing a lot of that. I think that's part of the issue. And then when Nicky said acceptance of change, I'm thinking of bargaining, like, are they doing that? This like, I don't really want it to be COVID. I don't really want to be virtual. I don't really want to have to do this new technology stuff. So can't I just stay here? Can I negotiate with myself about this? And that's, again, this is why I think we need more corporate psychologists, because I don't know how you work through that unless you have the help of a professional. If you're really stuck in that type of resistance, it's really a bummer to be there. And it is harming your whole staff, not just you and HR. You're harming your company by not processing this grief.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably there was, there's always the reluctance to change, isn't there? And this is the way we've always done it, so this is how we'll always continue to do it. And sometimes being able to see that, it's okay to pivot and change and try things that might not work, and then go, that wasn't right for us right now. But I think the pandemic drove you have to be forced to change, which people wanted to push against. Yeah. And because there was no, well, this is when it's going to end, people were like, well, I'll just kind of sit in this space of not doing anything, or just doing something that I know is not right, but I'm not seeing this as a long-term strategy or a long-term thing. And I think that's some of what I'm seeing more and more now, is where people are like, well, actually, this is now the future of work, this hybrid of work, and this state that it's not just, oh, we've got a vaccine now, or we've dealt with the virus and we'll just return to as it was. I think there's more acceptance now of, oh, okay, this is the future of work, and these digital transformation projects that we've had in play, we're now there, and we're not necessarily going backwards, but that's okay. That's not because we don't want the virus to go away. It's just because we've evolved and thrived in many cases in that. I just don't think there's that one size fits all that so many people are looking for and really want answers to. It never has been. And Kelly, I know we're talking about that tomorrow on Clubhouse, but there just isn't that silver bullet answer, because people are different, businesses are different, roles are different, technology is different. The things will change. And I just think there has been that period where people have gone, well, this won't last for a long time, so I'll just stay safe in where I am because of what I've always known.
It's pushing
sorry, go on, Laura.
Yeah, no, it's pushing against the river. Like, it's trying to push hard as opposed to just going with the flow.
Yeah, just lead into it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so we've been in this pandemic now for 12 months. And we're saying that and it's great that you're now seeing some of these changes and this kind of embracing the change happen, Nicky. I suppose, again, for both of you, do you think we've moved far enough forward with some of that? Because definitely COVID pushed us into, we have to do this. This is the future of work. This is the hybrid. This is what we can be doing about it. But even a year in, I'm still seeing some reluctance to change, right? Even a year in, we're still seeing some leaders wanting to get all of their people back into an office. We are still seeing some companies, some leaders, some HR professionals that will not talk about training unless they're booking it 3 or 4 months in advance and expecting people to go in and deliver it face to face for them. So to your points, Laura, and again, I suppose this will vary for everybody. If we talk about it in terms of the grief cycle, like that could take a month for some people and 5 years for others. But a year in, again, Laura and I were having this conversation last year. Like, I have been, although it's definitely been up and down, I have been really, really excited about what this hybrid workplace, the future workplace, and all those sorts of things can look like and feel like, and adapting much more technology, adapting different ways to do it. Because again, this is stuff that I've been talking about for at least 10 years, if not longer. So for me, I'm really, really excited by it. But I then still hear, I've been doing this for 10 years and kind of hoping that now lots of people will have kind of caught up with some of that. And some of us are still in that, I still want face-to-face. I'm still not ready to adapt. So is there, I don't know, are there stories we can tell? Is there a way that we can start to encourage people? Does it come through showing that there is a different way and bringing people along that journey? Because I suppose my biggest fear is that the three of us and others that are doing similar stuff to us are still banging on some people's doors in 10 years' time. Like, come on, people, we've got to embrace it now. There has to be a different way.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good point, and something that I talk about so passionately and frequently at the minute is I think it's hard for people right now to see this hybrid way of work during a lockdown that's forced, because this isn't how it will be. This isn't how it was previously, when you've always embraced remote work and hybrid work and flexibility around work, whereas I'm constantly in the same room, in the same house, having every experience that I have digitally, and I don't have the opportunity to go to a hub collaborative space to work with a colleague or work in a Starbucks or on a customer site or whatever that works inside that hybrid for you. I'm here, this is it. So I think for people to kind of see past that and into the future, we have to have some of the restrictions lift for people to go, oh, okay, I get it. I now get how flexibility works, because some people can't really see past now of how that will work. And I think that's the digital burnout and drain of what we're all going through. It's difficult to see that future state that you were already in previously, Kel, pre-pandemic. It's difficult for people to see that when they're living this, I guess. So I think there are those highlights and those kind of spotlights we can shine on where people are getting it right and where they were getting it right even prior to pandemic. But I think until we're out of it and we're lifted, people are only experiencing now because it's so raw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I've been hearing so much around fixed mindset versus growth mindset, right? So I guess I'm not an expert in those terms, but in my brain, the growth mindset is exactly what Kelly's talking about, which is thinking ahead, thinking long-term, thinking strategically, or as Nicky's saying, trying to remember that you're not like in this little room for the rest of your life. And I'm sure there are ways you can train on that and read about that and learn about that, but it's important to get out of the little box of our brain. We've always done it this way. Kelly, to your point, like you're surprised a year in it's not better. I actually think it's getting worse now, because it's like now they're so resistant. Like the ones who are stuck in the fixed mindset, it's like, I don't want it to change. They were screaming they didn't want it to change last March, but now it's almost this like palpable anger, resentment, bitterness. And I'm like, it's going to either explode them, like they're going to implode and leave HR, or I think we're at the cusp of this revolution, because I can feel the tension even more now. It's like, oh, I guess, to your point, Nikki, I guess we have to radically accept this. And we didn't want to. And we kind of got away with not dealing with it. And now we have to deal with it, and it's even more annoying. It's just interesting to see. And I don't, to your point, I don't know how we can help everyone in an immediate way other than just bring light to this and say, if you're feeling this way.
And I think there is that process again of that aware, or that, for me, I think there is that stuff around that awareness and that feeling. Because if all of us will have been in organizations where there has been change, right? And whether it's being started by the exec team, or whether it's being started by a leadership team, or whether it's being, started by the HR team, the majority of the time in our businesses, 90% of the people that we are forcing through a change of some sort have that level of resistance.
Yeah.
Because we are saying to them, whether we're doing restructures, growths, mergers, acquisitions, bringing in Nicky's hula, whatever it is that we're kind of doing, there will be people that are really, really up for that. And there will be people that are really resistant to it. And again, my hope for the HR community, with everything that we have been going through over the last 12 months, is that we can use this to recognize how some of our people will feel next time we are forcing a change on them.
Yeah.
So whether it's new system, new tech, new way of working, new way of learning, whatever it is, my hope is that this gives us enough awareness, empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, all of those things to say, oh, actually, right, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
When you are being forced to do something that either you're not ready for, you're not set up for, you haven't got the tech or the equipment or the support to do, you haven't got the network of people around you, you haven't got the community, all of that kind of stuff. So again, I think I genuinely hope that we're able to kind of take some of that from it. At the same time, I do think we've got to start embracing it. And to your point, Laura, I wrote a post on LinkedIn this morning about kind of letting go of judgment. I then did a longer article on it because I started to get kind of loads of thoughts and comments, and I'm also seeing that kind of close to implosion. I am seeing the level of judgment.
Yeah. Wild. It's
Feels
wild.
like kind of like a bottle of Diet Coke or something.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to take the lid off, and it's going to explode and go everywhere.
Yeah.
Because everybody, Nikki shouldn't be doing this, Laura shouldn't be doing that, Kelly shouldn't be doing this, who do they think they are, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just seeing that get to, almost a level of explosion.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, we've got to take a step back. Judging people is only reflecting what's coming up for you. And again, that's another learning. What is coming up for you to make you go through that, whatever process we're going through from a judgment perspective. But we can't just keep bubbling and bubbling, because as soon as we unscrew that lid, you're absolutely right. It's either gonna, it's gonna be completely flat, or it's gonna explode everywhere. And I don't know which way it's gonna go.
Yeah, it's a bit like. Sorry,
go first. Go.
I was going to say, it's a bit like a emotional buckaroo at the minute, that there's more and more and more going on, and any one piece on its own, it'd be like, nah, that's fine. But because we're in this heightened state all the time, and we're always on, and we're not carving out the off time, which used to happen quite naturally, I think that whole analogy of the bottle of Coke, and then the buckaroo adds and adds to it, it's got to get to a point where there's either a release or there's an acknowledgement of it, that we need to just let go of some things, and be okay with it's all right to learn from this situation, and use this as a bit of a period to experiment and go, do you know what, we didn't get that right, our bad. If we were going to do this again, we would do that, but that might not be right either, because things change and move on. But we're authentic enough to talk about it quite openly, which I think there is this, oh, I can't talk about certain things because I need to hold my stuff together and feel like I'm in that always locked on sort of space, which I don't think it's reality.
Yeah. I wanted to share a story with you both, and I haven't had a chance to tell you this off camera, so I'm excited that you're hearing it here. But it's all related to this Coke bottle analogy, which now is so helpful for me. But so I did a video last week. I like to do a YouTube video every week, and this one was on why are we not training talent acquisition professionals? So corporate recruiters. And the reason I did the video is I'm hearing from a lot of heads of HR who frankly are bubbling up and they're blaming and shaming their recruiting teams, which is common. There's always a common enemy in recruiting. We blame candidates, we blame recruiters, it's a cycle, it's tale as old as time that obviously we need to change. But when I hear it now and I see patterns, I worry. So I'm hearing a lot of like, yeah, our internal recruiters are awful and we probably just need to replace them. We're just using external headhunters. And look, 20 years ago, what I had to unlearn, right, when I started in external recruiting is that's good. That's more business for me, right? Okay, no, I don't feel that way anymore, thank God. And I'm like, no, we need to train your team. Like, we need to get your team up to speed. This is not, you don't just call headhunters and let them all suffer and burn out. So I did a video kind of, hopefully I thought, encouraging firms to consider developing their TA team. And I naively expected the response to be very positive and encouraged. And immediately, it's like my heart beats faster just telling you this because I'm still in shock by the reaction. So TA pros felt, it seems, that this was something they need to now defend. So there was a lot of like, we're not bad. We don't need training. We're not the ones who need help. They're the ones who need help. They're the jackasses, basically. And like, again, the blame, shame, here we go. Now it just flipped on its head. And I literally last night reading these tweets coming in, reading the comments coming in, thinking, what is happening? So I quickly got on Clubhouse, called a room, called it Blame and Shame. Amazingly, as you know, whoever's not on Clubhouse yet, it's an incredible new learning tool. And all these recruiters came in a room and tried to brainstorm it with me. Frankly, there were tons of moments of silence because we all were sort of perplexed. And there were a few in there who just kept repeating the blaming and shaming, like, well, that's because hiring managers, like they couldn't get out of it. They couldn't get out of the blame. It was over an hour. We finally said, okay, let's call it and we'll come back to it again later this week. I don't know what I learned other than it's really happening. It's really being seen all across the globe. And I don't know how we can move people through, first of all, a recognition that they're worthy of learning, that we're not blaming them by suggesting they need it, and then not to blame each other. I don't know. My brain is sort of like blah, blah, blah about this, so I would love your insight, but I was shocked by the reaction.
So I think some of that, and Nicky's probably got something to share as well, I think some of that comes back to the point that you made earlier about this kind of growth mindset, fixed mindset. If I'm in a fixed mindset, I do not see that I can do anything differently. Right? Okay. I am fixed. This is what I know. This is where I am. It's not my problem.
Okay.
If I'm in a growth mindset, I may be an expert. I may be brilliant at my job. I may be a great professional. I may have lots and lots of great skills and great talents and great skills and great qualities. I also realize if there is a problem, I may need to grow to fix it. I may need to help be part of that solution. Even that blame stuff, though, comes back to kind of what I suppose I was coming to in terms of some of the judgment stuff as well. Because if I see everything as being your fault, that is a judgment. Yeah. If I am willing to accept that I may be part of the problem, and that may be because I'm being defensive, that may be because I feel uncomfortable within my own role, that may be because I feel threatened that if I'm not doing it properly, you're just going to outsource me and go somewhere else anyway, or you might just bring in a new system and actually that's going to fix the problem, and and all of those sorts of things. So I think some of that comes from fear, some of that is that kind of fixed mindset, growth mindset. But anybody that says to me, there's a guy that I love, I won't name him here, but there's a guy that I absolutely love. I've been on some trips with, I speak to him every single week. He is one of the most amazing coaches that I know, and he is coaching like the best coach that he knows. So the best, like this massive like professor that's doing lots and lots of amazing stuff. He's being coached by my friend. And my friend is kind of always say, I'm coaching the professor again today. And sometimes he goes into that, but I don't know why he's chosen me. But to show that like this professor guy who is like top of his game is working with a really, really brilliant coach, he needs support, he needs coaching, he needs development, he needs somebody to be able to talk to. He needs all of the things that the rest of us think. If he'd got to professor level and suddenly thought, right, that's it, I know it all now. Right. I don't need to speak to anybody. I don't need to develop. I don't need to do anything.
Right.
I think that's a huge barrier to growth.
It's really like in our realm.
Nicky doesn't evolve that tech.
Yeah.
Like, this is the platform, and that's all you're going to get. If Nicky doesn't evolve any of that, in 12 months' time, that tech is obsolete because somebody else will have come in with something else that's doing something at a different level, or it's faster, or it's whatever. The tech has to keep evolving. We can't just say, this is it, off you go.
And I think I liken this a lot to a personal trainer. So every good personal trainer that I know has a personal trainer, because to keep up with such discipline, to learn new things, to not sit in a routine that feels like it's a safe place, to not continue to push yourself and challenge yourself, you can't then continue in some of what you're doing. And I think the second that you go, well, I know this now, the second you become quite complacent in what you do, because things do change and evolve and move on. And it's more than okay to the example there, to have a coach as a coach, or to have a trainer as a trainer, or to have as a HR professional somebody else that can guide you and you can learn from and push yourself in the field of what you do. And I think sometimes we go, well, I'm done learning now, and I know this now, and that's okay. And I think that's probably the second that you start to fall, behind, and then become resentful of others, and then become quite unsure of your worth and what you're doing, and you then become quite defensive in everything that you do, because it's easier to blame somebody else rather than go, actually, I've not moved or evolved with that as a process, or reflected that I could have handled that differently, or I wasn't as up to speed as I should have been, or whatever the example might be. And I think in turn that then does drive that, well, I'm not prepared to look at me, so I'll look at others and be resentful. And then we start to get that divide that then grows and grows and grows, because it's a perpetual cycle, right?
It's just so palpable right now in ways that I didn't even expect. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many of them that feel this way. And yeah, I mean, I love a good sports analogy. Nicky loves sports. Kelly, you love yoga. I mean, in yoga, they call it a practice. You're endlessly practicing. Yoga teachers have yoga teachers. I mean, so sometimes I guess I'm flabbergasted, because in our little echo chamber of the three of us, we all believe in growth mindset. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for me to get in the mindset of fixed mindset. So much so that I'm genuinely just confused. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't be wanting to grow and improve, particularly in a pandemic, particularly in 2021, particularly when the profession is at its cusp of evolution. Like, don't you want to be the best right now? And some don't. And I hope, frankly, some of them find different professions, because we need HR professionals that are really curious and willing to evolve.
And I think that comes back again to a lot of the earlier points that we discussed, isn't it? So I think it comes back to the kind of two phases of the grief that you mentioned. I think it comes to what Nicky was saying about the change, and actually, do we feel like it's being forced upon us? But I also think we have to be more open. Learning isn't just about having a coach, getting a qualification, or going on a course. It could be joining us on these sorts of conversations. It could be joining in a Clubhouse conversation. It could be a book, a blog, a podcast. It could be attending an online event that's full of different speakers. It could be looking at what else is going on in the wider sector, from a recruiter perspective. Actually, what are the trends of recruitment looking like currently? Which sectors are in huge growth and which ones might be in decline? Let me find out more about different sectors. Let me find out what's going on in the world of work and recruitment and all of those sorts of things at the minute. Actually, if we're going to need 1 million more, I don't know, tech designers or system designers, or if we're going to need 1 million more of those in 5 years' time, or a year's time, or 5 months' time, actually, what can I be doing now to make that happen? And again, I think if we still stay in that, I quite like my little bubble, I'm waiting for everything to go back to like it was 12 months ago, we won't be here in a year's time. We won't be here in 5 years' time, because businesses, leaders, our people need us to be thinking differently.
Yeah.
Absolutely need us to be thinking differently. Kyle's just commented, sorry to interrupt you, Nikki. Kyle's just commented, I've had more professional development in the last 2 weeks since joining Clubhouse than I have in the last couple of years.
Love that.
Like, that's the reality of community, right?
Yeah, and Clubhouse itself is such an awesome platform. Like, to be fair, I think, not to make this conversation all about Clubhouse in any way, but when I saw their marketing campaign and what they'd done around it, was almost like this VIP club, and some people, some people absolutely loved that, and other people found it, not particularly inclusive, and especially because it was iOS and so on. And then I think it started to seed out and get a reputation and a bit of a buzz of, well, what is it, sort of thing. I think you do need to be careful of some of the advice that you take, but that's life, right? You don't just take everybody's advice as a given and go, oh, okay, well, I'll just go and use that in my day to day. But I think there's so many people to network and learn from and bounce ideas off, especially now when we are far apart. It's a way to come closer together and meet people you wouldn't necessarily have been able to. But even the medium itself, right? So it's not video. It's not about an Insta story or a LinkedIn story or a post or a blog or text comments. It's about real organic conversation with lots of individuals that have to learn to be, and Lorena, we've talked about this a lot, that patience of hearing points of view. And when a stage gets busy, I think that can be a bit distracting at times. But there's so many people that then come together that you learn from and dive in on conversations you just wouldn't have been part of. Like, I quite like the joining rooms as well that aren't necessarily something in my area of background or knowledge, because I just dive in, and how would I have ever been, learning about a DJ that's just using a new algorithm to program something? I would have never just dropped and happened upon that. But I learned stuff, right? And it was exciting, and it's a way to dive into different topics that you wouldn't have necessarily been able to.
Yeah.
And I do think that level of openness is what we need. And again, not making this a big kind of Clubhouse promo, but I got my invite.
This is not sponsored by Clubhouse.
Yeah, no, this is not sponsored by Clubhouse. But like, my invite came through between Christmas and New Year. And I was like, I'm going to switch, like, I'm switched off. I'm not on it. I had a quick look at it. I was like, fine. I immediately sent Laura an invite, right? Don't know what it is. Don't know. Have a look. There seems to be a few HR people. And then when I kind of came back in the new year, it was like, oh, that thing is still there. There seems to be a few more HR people, maybe at some point, like, I'll start a conversation. So I definitely wasn't, if you like, one of the early HR adopters, because if I was, I'd have been on it between Christmas and New Year, like, hi, let's make this space something different. And then I think at the point that I was like, oh, now I'm kind of ready to have some conversations, like, the HR space on there is enormous, like the HR space, the training space, the people space. And just in that kind of really small period of time, the amount of people that have embraced it and that have used it and that are using it as a learning platform, I think is phenomenal. But I suppose I could have considered, if I think of, I've completely forgotten his name now, the marketing guy, Josh.
Gary Vaynerchuk?
No, he's got big glasses. So Seth Godin. And he talked about this, like, the kind of adopters curve. So are you kind of an innovator, an early adopter, kind of where do you come in on this peak? And again, with a lot of the learning stuff, a lot of the HR, a lot of the talent acquisition, a lot of the kind of people that are doing, kind of the L&D stuff, a lot of us actually are not in the kind of early adoption, that kind of first part of that curve, because we do want to see things tried and tested, and we do want to know how it's worked. And a lot of our leadership teams want case studies and examples of things that have, what will give me another, what company has this worked at? Give me 5 case studies where this company's worked brilliantly, which in a lot of cases then puts us towards this kind of last end of this kind of adoption curve, which isn't particularly innovative or exciting for a lot of our people, because, if we wait for a lot of the, again, if we use Clubhouse as that example, by the time it's kind of on Android and been through 10,000 iterations, that's when a lot of the kind of people community learning talent acquisition, that's where we'll be thinking, oh, there's this brilliant new tool that you could use. And the rest of us will have been on it for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And it will be old then, and we're going to be onto something new that's
we'll be onto a new platform. Yeah, we'll have moved on.
Yeah.
It's something interesting in that at the minute, isn't it? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm loving Clubhouse. I enjoy. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, though, Laura. Right? When you join a room and you're like, I'm just here to listen. I want to kind of work and just listen, and then somebody pulls you up to the stage, and you're like, oh, and you have that awkward. Okay, I'm in now. I'm involved. Okay, we are where we are. I think I love it, and I'm enjoying the conversations. I'm enjoying the new connections to people that are then coming up and speaking, and different perspectives and different voices that you start to hear that perhaps across other channels, because of the people that you follow, you often only see those people that you follow. Whereas in Clubhouse, right, that could be somebody I've never heard of. They say something intriguing, I follow them, and then therefore the network grows. I wonder, though, at what point that starts to become a touch saturated, that there's so many of those similar conversations that it loses maybe some of the novelty, or maybe some of the uniqueness to the conversation, that it's like, I feel like we've had this chat, and that's because lots of people haven't been in it, that we kind of need to cover that ground again.
Yeah.
Or I wonder whether it will evolve, and maybe some of because I know my Twitter feed at the minute is predominantly, there's this Clubhouse room, and you're like, you want the opportunity to join as many as you can.
Yeah.
I wonder when some of that will fade, and we'll see less of them, and whether they become richer in the nature and as the medium, or whether it phases out or fads out in a way. I hope that what Clubhouse don't do is try to amalgamate every other social network, so it tries to be things to people.
Yeah.
Because I think what they've done really well is go with something really simple and organic that's about audio connection, and connection with individuals, rather than add another story type or filters or images where you then get this blurred, is it work, is it personal, is it a LinkedIn, it's quite distinctive in what it is right now, and I hope they remain true to that in part.
Yeah. So can I ask you a question then, Nikki? Sorry, go on, Laura.
Did you see that Twitter is starting Spaces, which is like Clubhouse?
Oh, really? I hadn't seen that, no.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. The other day I was on Twitter, and on the stories on top, it said like this new bubble +2, and I clicked on it, and it was an audio room. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I Googled it, and it's a brand new thing. I guess I'm not able to host one yet, but maybe I'm on the early, can go in. I didn't go in because I didn't know what it was. The next time I see it, I will. So clearly they're going to try and do this too. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about that, because I feel like the beauty of Clubhouse is that's all they do. I don't want to go on Twitter and also have audio rooms.
Yeah. And is that what, because I think it was similar then, because on Facebook you could add rooms as well, couldn't you? Which I think was a similar sort of thing, although I think that did, not that I ever did one, but I think that also had the video stuff on it.
Yeah, they're all trying to cross over.
The problem that you've got though with Twitter and Facebook as a medium is, even if those are rooms, the concept is I'm connected to the people that I follow, whereas Clubhouse is that kind of open public space, everybody come in. So I guess Twitter would have to try to introduce the concept of open concept of rooms, that you're not just what's in your view every day. And this is the thing about tech, right? When we try to create this one system, one size fits all, one silver bullet approach, it just doesn't work, because it's too distracting. People compare it to something else, or there's too many things that then fight for your attention at the same time. And I think that it will be interesting to see whether Clubhouse book and kind of fold to some of that, especially if Twitter is starting to do something similar. But it's a great medium for those that aren't on it, I think.
Absolutely. Could I just, and then maybe this is to both of you, but I think to the point that Nikki just made earlier. So in terms of what you were saying, again, this is not sponsored by Clubhouse, but where you were saying where maybe some of the same conversations will happen, and some people might get bored, right? Are we still having this same conversation? But again, some of the new users might want to, maybe they haven't had that conversation before, maybe it will be really, really interesting for them. Do you think that's where sometimes we are going, I don't want to say wrong is the wrong word, but do you think sometimes that is where we are going wrong with some of our learning in-house? Because let's say everybody's going to go on communications training. So we design this communications training, and in some cases we still make it mandatory, and it's got to be done annually and all of that sort of stuff. And it's this one thing. Laura and Nicky then leave the organisation, and 2 new leaders come in and take their place. So now these 2 new leaders need to have this communications training, but we're also going to say that everybody else has also been in the organisation forever. You may have been on it 5 times now, but you're still going to go on the communications training. Nicky and Laura get loads out of it, right? Because this is new, this is fresh, this is specific to their organisation, based on their role, it's brilliant. But everybody else that is on that training with you, whether that's online or whatever, is thinking, I have done this to death now because this is my 8th time on this course or program or whatever. I am bored to death with it, and therefore I'm going to disengage. And because I disengage from the communications training, that next time that you shine that new beautiful course or program or whatever at me, I'm not interested because I am done to death with the training. Do you think some of that is potentially what we're seeing within our organisations? Because a lot of the time, isn't it, we're not creating new stuff based on where we are today. We're saying this course worked really well for us 8 years ago, let's keep delivering it because we know it added value then.
Yeah. I think 100% we sheep dip everybody, and we do it year on year, and so especially compliance training, it's so, we've got to be audited, so we've got to tick a box, so we'll just put everybody through it. And this is, I mean, I bang on about this all the time, but when we force process and tech onto people rather than personalization in the individual, why don't you just allow me to go, okay, these are the things that I need to know about communication, ask me up top, bang, 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 nailed it. I don't need to go through a 30-minute course that I've done 5 times before. Or equally, if I'm moving from organisation A to organisation B, I've probably already done that because you've recruited me and welcomed me into your organisation for the skills that I have. So don't then sheep dip me against those same skills again. Again, allow me to answer them. And there might be some things about the company that are relevant that I need, but allow that personalisation, that I can be in control of some of what I need myself rather than just do it. And I think this is the thing about any learning and any technology. There's that blend of actually, what does the individual need that's very different to role, person, organization, even geographical location, time of day, and personalize it for them and allow them to have something that isn't a one size fits all, because I'll engage with it. Just forcing more and more technology or more and more process or more and more content or courses does not engagement make. That's not what we do in our personal lives. We find stuff that works for us, and then we continue to engage with it because we like it and because it gets recommended, and somebody goes, hey, I'll send you an invite to Clubhouse, come and join this room. No organization went, well, we're going to mandate that you go to a Clubhouse room to learn about our culture. It has to have that organic, I'm in and I'm a part of it, and it's flexible. Because as soon as we make it anything else, as human beings, we push against it. So I think we do that all the time. And just because you can doesn't always mean you should with stuff like compliance and so on. There are different ways to get an audited report that says, yes, 90% of our organisation are accredited. There are different ways to get there that allow for agility and personalisation that don't, just force stuff on people.
Yeah. And I wonder, Laura, if some of that then feeds into the point that you made earlier about this kind of outrage about the kind of talent acquisition coachings, that actually, because when we talk about talent acquisition, I'm not the same as you, you're not the same as Nicky, Nicky's not the same as me. So again, are we assuming that we are all being put into the same box? And that we all have the same problem, or we don't have the same problem, or some of that sort of stuff. And is some of that causing some of that? Actually, I'm a better recruiter than you, so why would I need you? Why would I need your training? they're a better recruiter than me. Why would they need training? So I wonder if some of that kind of feeds into it again. But I think, again, from a growth mindset, if I'm open to the learning, I'm open to the learning. But to Nicky's point, I want the learning to be personal to me. I don't want to be on the same course, whether I'm a leader or a manager, if I've been with the organisation for 10 years, I may need something different to somebody that's only been there a week. Or I will likely need something different for somebody that's been there a week. And yet we don't personalise that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys took it to the next step. So you started with, where I could have cut you off, with like it's another training, we're not going to want to do it. Of course we know how to do it, which is exactly the defensiveness I'm hearing. Thankfully, you took it to the next step, which is, I don't want to do this. I already know this, but I do want to learn something. I do want to know something. So why can't I customize and ask for and talk through what I need? That's that second step. So it's okay to be offended by what you're going to, if I was trying to recruit a global head of talent acquisition, or train a global head of talent acquisition on basic stuff that they already aced, and I talked to them about it and they said, no, that I don't need training on. That's fine. You're allowed to say, like, no, that I have. And what I do need is, where I am struggling is, what I could use support with. It's like we're missing that second part. We're just doing the defensive. I don't need that. That's what I'm worried about.
Do you think that's coming from them or their organisation, or that's a very guarded thing that right now I don't want to admit that I can't, or that there are things that I don't know? Where do you think that stems from?
So I asked my friend Sarah Noel Wilson, who you both know from Twitter, who loves neuroscience and neuroleadership, and she's just so smart about the brain. And she once said to me, people don't fear change, they fear loss. And so I've been really questioning, what are they afraid to lose? What concerns me is I think there's a fear of job security in recruiting and HR. That if they have to admit they don't know something, are they replaceable because they're a cost center and non-necessary, and so I'm reconciling that could be the fear could be that raw. What do you think, Kelly? What are they?
Yeah, I think there is that. And again, I think we've spoken about that before. The other side of that, I think, is that if we are not open to the learning and development, I am going to lose my job. And I do really think it is that catch-22. If I'm too worried to admit that I don't know something, or that I want to develop, or that I want to grow, for fear that I will lose it, I think the danger is in not training and not growing and not developing and not looking at what's happening. You are at risk of losing your job, because somebody's going to come along with a shiny new system, or somebody's going to come along with a different offering or a different way of doing it, or a more forward-thinking approach, and say, hey, I can do this for you. It's going to cost you this, and you'll get this, and this on top of it. I'm going to pay whatever it is to get this added extra, because I want to say the basic, and I don't mean the basic, but the job that you're doing now is not going to be what I want from you 6 months down the line. I want to tell me what's going to be happening in 2 years' time, not what was happening yesterday.
Do you know, this is such a good point. So, we as we talk all the time about capability gap and skills gap and roles of the future, and how that gap widens and widens, and the pandemic has further widened that gap. And I think I see a lot. We talk about that. We talk about capabilities, skills, and tasks, and what will need people to do in the future state. But I don't know how much there's as HR, how do we enable that? How do I not just system? And I know that's like odd coming from me, but like, how do we enable that to happen? And how do we prep our people to enable other people to bridge that gap? And I just don't think we've kind of wound that back. And I think that is because we've been so reactive inside the pandemic too, that it's been very difficult to see anything else other than the mop that has been HR in COVID. But when we come out of this, that gap will be wider. And I don't know that we've taken that time to go, right, okay, HR professionals, what do we need in order to enable our people? And I think that's some of the conversation, isn't it, Laura, around that admittance of actually I need help in these things, and that's okay, because I don't know what I don't know, and things have changed and they've moved on in the past 12 months. And it's all right to come out of that and go, I was so busy dealing with something really, really reactive that I'm now in this state where I need to go, right, what do I need as an individual to get through my next 3 years, 5 years, and that how that gap widens, but how I help others through it too.
Yeah. Well, we've all sat through so many sessions of people talking about data and ROI and agile and pivoting, right? But have we had many conversations where someone has said, hey, we've got this really amazing new HR tech and this amazing new learning platform or this amazing new coach, but before we even begin that, HR leaders, what are you afraid of losing? What are you feeling? Right? We're not doing that. And so we just shoot them with data, and then they go back and they have all these feelings we haven't addressed. And that's what I'm saying. We're going to need to address what's blocking them, because we want to evolve the profession, but we can't do it if the fixed mindset is so pervasive.
And I wonder if some of that comes back to the curiosity. Are we, and also the leaders within our organisation. So a contact of mine spoke to me maybe 2 years ago about some stuff that was going on in Adidas. So Adidas, on their kind of road to sustainability and change and using new tech and different ways to manufacture and all of those sorts of things, they started to upskill and reskill a large proportion of their people, knowing that in however many years' time, with the sustainability and different ways of working and manufacturing and all of these sorts of things, their entire company would be completely different. So we're going to invest in our people, we're going to upskill them, we're going to reskill them. Some of these people will then have the skills that we need for them for whatever it is that we do in the future. And some of these people we won't need because of the way that we are changing, but we will have developed them and grown them enough that they will have amazing skills to then go and take elsewhere. And I have been fascinated by that story for the last couple of years and kind of follow it, because if you're going to invest in a group of people that you may not have, I don't know, I have no idea what the percentage are. I'm not going to guess or any of that sort of stuff. But if you're going to invest in an entire population of your workforce, knowing that you will lose a percentage of them, but they're going to take that skill somewhere else, for me, that is an amazing learning culture. And I think, locally to us, we had the Thomas Cook closure, 18 months ago. So, and for me, that was a blockbuster story, absolutely blockbuster story. We're still going to have a retail model. We're still going to do all of this stuff. We're still going to do all of this stuff. 1,000 people in my hometown lost their jobs as soon as that company closed, because the organisation hadn't been adaptive, proactive enough to say there needs to be a different way, and therefore we need to get our people to where it is that we need to be. And I think, again, from an HR, from an L&D, from a people perspective, some of that we can say, okay, we need to be having more people with some more of these skills. But if the vision and growth and aspirations of the top team, the leadership team, are that let's just keep on doing what we're doing, I don't think you can really prepare for what it is. And is some of the challenge that we've got within L&D, TA and HR at the moment, that whilst some of the HR teams may want to take some of that forward, our leaders still want everybody back in an office as soon as the government says, go back to your offices tomorrow. So again, have we got that kind of push-pull in that maybe we do want to take leaps forward, but our leaders don't? And in some organisations, the leaders want to take leaps forward and the people teams haven't got the skills to be able to do that. So again, it's that kind of chicken and egg situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so much going on there, isn't there? That's probably a whole talk in itself that we could unpack. But even there, like, you've got companies that are not necessarily looking at how their business will change. So the whole blockbuster analogy, Actually, they went, oh, okay, well, we'll put that you can, post out DVDs online. Actually, Netflix are way ahead of you in that that DVD format is now online, and then they've put in their own studio to reduce different costs and have that as a supply chain that makes sense digitally. So in an example like that, you've got a company that have been in a way quite stubborn to change and going, well, that will never happen. And I think we will see that thing with like renewables and the way that, as you've just given with the Adidas example, how businesses will need to change and evolve, especially coming out of the pandemic, and how, certainly retail, how that will be impacted. So I think there's the resistance to change in an industry. And then even if you recognize that change, how do you then prepare your people for that change and that reskill? And then inside of a pandemic and, digital evolution and this future and hybrid of work, there's so many different priorities, I guess, pull in there at any one time, in a place where people feel quite burnt out and in a place where people have that reluctance to change. I think there's almost that, admittance of that there is a lot, but we actually need to get to the core of some of it to help our people, and we need to get there quickly. And we know it's not easy and know there's a lot going on, but we can't stop that pace of change, and we can't sit and wait for it to go away because it'll have just gone past us. And I think maybe the more that people accept that and accept that it's okay, the river analogy, to move into to that and lean into it rather than resist against it, maybe that's some of the biggest learnings that we could take.
Yeah. If I could give any listener or viewer like anything to take away from today, it's try not to resist what's going on. Work on the acceptance and know that learning and development are not only a strength and it's a necessity right now, as we're saying. This is literally what you have to do. You have to admit where you need support and you have to get it. I would also say that we need to kind of reduce this. We've been talking so much in HR about ROI and data and justifying the spend. I'm sure, Nicky, you hear this all the time in HR tech, like, oh, we love this, but we're going to have to go back to our CFO and justify the spend. And really, it's going to be a lot. It's not. I'm sick of it. It's like, don't justify it. Don't over-explain it. Just go in and say, we need this. This is what we're doing. This is important, because you're wasting months, maybe 6 months, 8 months, a year, trying to over-explain, trying to justify, trying to get buy-in. I think things are moving way too fast. You need a coach, get a coach. You need a trainer, get a trainer. You need an HR tech platform, just get the budget and do it. Because in the end, your CFO and CEO will be thrilled that they're up to speed. And they know they have to spend some money. So that whole game that you're saying, Kelly, some of that's years of playing that we just need to stop the dance. Like, let's change it.
Yeah.
It's a new reality. We don't have to go in there trepidatiously and knowing that we have to be cautious. That's so 10 years ago. Just go in there and say, this is what we need.
I'm with you.
That's it. So get what you need. So, Nicky, where can everybody see the new website?
Yeah, if you go to www.huler, which is huler.io, you can check out the website and what we're set to launch at the beginning of April, which is a way to aggregate the systems, the tech, the sites, the applications that work well for you as a business into one place to reduce digital burnout and cognitive load, but bring in how people's personal life and personal digital life comes into the flexibility of an employee life cycle and lifestyle. So yeah, check it out and get in touch. Give us a shout if you'd like some more information.
Yeah, very cool. If you haven't seen it, it's an employee experience platform, which I just love. We need more of that. And Kelly, everyone knows where to find you, but feel free to mention it.
So Twitter, LinkedIn, Kelly Swingler, and then on Instagram, I am at Coaching People Leaders.
And now you're on Clubhouse at Kelly.
And now I'm on Clubhouse as Kelly Swingler.
And I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Clubhouse, and then Laura Mazzullo on LinkedIn. And my YouTube channel is Learn with Laura HR. And please share that video about recruiting, needing training, because I want to see that space get the development it deserves.
Absolutely. Awesome.
It's been
a pleasure spending an hour with you two.
It was lovely.
Do it again. Amazing.
Yeah,
see you all
will. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, if you've got Comments, questions, themes, topics that you would like Laura and I, and possibly Nikki, if she wants to come back and join us. If you've got anything that you'd like us to talk about next time, again, just drop either of the three of us message, comment on these videos, share, just let us know, and we will be sure to answer all of that for you. But for now, happy Tuesday all, and I will see you soon.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye bye.